Just over a week ago, I was at Silverstone Racetrack in the UK taking part in Fully Charged Live. If you didn't get a chance to go, I can tell you it was an amazing event with lots of fun things to do and see, as well as some cracking panels on the future of cleaner, greener transportation and energy to boot. And thanks to Robert and the rest of the team for making it such an amazing event. As part of that event, I was honoured enough to take part in a couple of panels, one on myth-busting in the world of EVs and one on megatrends and politics. Essentially, the question that we were dancing around in that latter one was this: do megatrends trump politics? For those who don't know, megatrends are sustained global trends that aren't influenced so much by individual political policies, but are relentless in their drive to change the market. A good example of a megatrend is the transition to affordable computers in the early 1980s and the mass adoption of the internet in the late 1990s and early noughties. Mobile telephones are, of course, another megatrend, and in a world where environmental concern and global warming are rearing their ugly heads, many agree that electric cars, car-sharing schemes and autonomous vehicles are all burgeoning megatrends, as well as renewable energy, of course, that will inevitably make the world a better place to live for everyone. If you watched the panel live that I'm talking about, you'll know that one question which came up revolved around the current President of the United States of America, essentially asking if the current US White House and its policies as they stand, both domestic and international, could prevent or halt the transition to cleaner, greener, safer and smarter transportation and energy completely. And if you understand what a megatrend is, then you know it doesn't need politics to survive. But I've been giving it some serious thought since then, and while politics may not prevent a megatrend from taking place, they can and do slow things down, putting the inevitable back rather than stopping it completely. Which is why I think it's important for anyone who wants to get involved in the transition from fossil fuels to cleaner transportation and energy, gets comfortable with the idea of politics and gets to know just what's going on at a political level where they live, at a local, national, and even, if possible, an international level. I know, you're probably already turned off at this point because, let's face it, politics can kind of be boring. And worse still, in the age of pay-to-play, corruption in politics is commonplace and corrupt. And it can seem, at least at face value, that politics is just a waste of our time. But just as disenfranchised voters looking for a change in the way their countries are being run have helped bring about some pretty major political shifts globally, changes which some of you will view as good and others will view as bad, so too can fans and advocates of cleaner, greener transportation and energy make a big difference on how their elected officials make plans for the future. At the end of the day, elected officials are there to act in the best interests of the people they represent. And if they're not doing that, then come election season, they soon may find themselves in a difficult position. And regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum, be it left, right, centre or somewhere in between, making your voice heard on the issues you feel strongly about does help impact the future. It's very easy, of course, to sit back and think you're someone who won't be listened to, someone who won't be taken seriously. But every time you think that you're not going to be listened to, you're actually making sure you won't be. Essentially, you can only be heard if you choose to make a noise in the first place. To be clear, I'm not suggesting everyone watching this goes out and becomes a political activist. I don't think, honestly, that would do any good. And also, political activism does tend to be militant, and if you're too militant, then you're also hard to take seriously or listen to. Instead, get familiar with the issues at hand. Learn the arguments for and against electric cars and cleaner energy. Engage with those who disagree using intellect rather than yelling at them, and strive for common ground and mutual understanding. Make the process of making the right choice easy for those in positions of power. Sure, getting involved in politics is daunting and very often doesn't reap rewards, but playing an active part in your local political landscape, be it simply voting, writing letters, or actually standing for office, you can make a difference. Individually, one person can't make an impact, but if everyone who feels the same way makes a concerted effort, that's when we start to change. And if you can make an economic case to people in power, well, it's often a lot easier too, because sadly, money talks. Sure, megatrends happen with or without politics, but if you want to see the change, be it, encourage it and educate about it. Don't wait for someone else to do it for you. Oh, and if you can, you could also consider supporting one of the many groups around the world already advocating for cleaner energy and transportation. Have you got tempted to get involved in politics to help bring about a change in energy and transportation? How did it go? And what advice would you give to others? Tell me your stories in the comments below. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and see you next time.